soul and body, humbling himself into his humanity, and reminding him always to champion the weak and the poor. Now, as a man clean in body and spirit, the knight-to-be presented himself to God. With his companions and sponsors waiting prayerfully outside, the man spread his weapons on the altar and stood watch. For no less than 10 hours, he prayed the prayers of devotion and ran his heart over each tool of his trade, his sword, his mace, his lance, his gauntlet, perhaps even his saddle and the standard of his king. And he waited for God to receive him, for the words that would form his call, for the grace to conquer his passions, for the boldness befitting his charge. He also envisioned the next day. His companions would come for him and take him to the appointed place. A priest would say a mass, and then the knight candidate would kneel. The priest would bless him, and then, while his companions held them aloft, the priest would bless his weapons. There would be a sermon and charges from the older knights about the price of the call. Perhaps a pair of spurs would be put upon his feet, symbols of the nobility and rank he had attained. Certainly his mentors would attest to the other nobles that he was properly prepared, that his training was complete, and they would kiss him in welcome to the fellowship of the sword. The sword. Finally, it would be time. The sword crafted uniquely for him would be brought forth and laid before him. He had dreamed of this moment all his life. The priest would then take the sword, and the others might place their hands upon it as well. Then would come the sacred words. Bless this sword, so that it may be a defense for churches, widows, and orphans, and for all servants of God against the fury of the heathen. Then the king or highest noble in attendance would administer the collé, the ceremonial blow to the head and neck with the sword. Later generations would remember this as a dubbing, a tapping on the shoulders and head. In truth, it was more dramatic, more violent. It was a chopping motion meant to remind the knight that he was under the sword, that he had already surrendered his life to a cause. All this would come the next day. For now, though, the knight-to-be is in prayer, eager that he will never fail the holy trust he is about to receive. He is to be a knight, chosen, destined, anointed by his God. It is a sacred thing. Lord, make me worthy, he prays. And then in the concluding silence, Deus vult. God wills it. It is literally true. There are no atheists in foxholes. Religion is precious under fire. Lieutenant General A. A. Vandergrift, former Commandant United States Marine Corps. Introduction. Lance Corporal James Galt sits trembling on the edge of his bunk somewhere in Iraq. His wet, reddened face is pressed firmly into his rugged hands. From time to time he runs his palms over the short blonde hair that covers his scalp, as though driving his tears to the back of his skull. Between sobs, Galt tells the chaplain his story. Just 2 days ago, his platoon drove their Humvees into a nearby village. It was just routine. They had been to the village many times. Galt had even come to recognize the faces of the children who gathered around their vehicles. This time, though, the platoon came under attack. Insurgents had apparently entered the village and were now shooting from every direction. The Marines returned fire. Galt gripped his .50 caliber machine gun and searched the rooftops for the source of the rounds that were pinging against the sides of his Humvee. Then he saw it. There was a man firing a Kalashnikov from a roof just a few buildings away. Foolishly, the man fired down on the Marines from a standing position, which left him almost completely exposed. Galt raised his gun and pressed the trigger. The massive weapon roared. Though he had been in the field for months, Galt was stunned by what happened next. The fierce barrage of the .50 caliber cut the man in half, almost exactly at the waist. The Kalashnikov fell from his hands to the street 3 stories below. Then, as Galt watched in shock, the man's torso tilted forward, left his lower half, and fell to the street as well, not far from where Galt crouched in his vehicle. The man's legs and midsection still stood upright on the roof, just as they had when the man was alive. For 2 days, the scene has refused to leave James Galt's mind. He replays it again and again, and it forces him against the greater realities of his life. Galt is no coward.